Lecture topic: Dental caries. Etiology of the theory of caries occurrence. Modern concept of caries occurrence. Dental caries is a dynamic pathological process that occurs after teething, during which demineralization of the hard tissues of the tooth occurs. What leads to the formation of a defect in the form of a cavity in the enamel and dentin? Caries occurs as a result of the combined effects of adverse general caries can be called a social disease, a disease of civilization. There is evidence of tooth decay in people who lived 2,500 years ago, since agriculture gradually replaced hunting and gathering edible plants. The prevalence of caries increased from the beginning of our era to the Middle Ages. It practically did not change. The pronounced abrasion of teeth, which began at a young age, was ahead. And the increase in the incidence of caries. When studying the skulls of the inhabitants of Russia in the 9th to 12th centuries, it was found that approximately 3.3% of the population suffered from dental caries. In the 17th century, when sugar became more affordable and softer food, the prevalence of caries increased sharply. At the end of the 19th century, most of the population of developed countries suffered from carious lesions of the teeth. Dental caries, currently the most common disease of mankind. There are numerous data that in economically developed countries the severity and population reaches 98% because the incidence worldwide tends to increase according to the World Health Organization. There is a sharp increase in the incidence of caries among the population developing countries, especially in areas of intensive urbanization. Epidemiology. According to the WHO nomenclature, three main indicators of the prevalence of the disease are used to assess the prevalence of caries: the intensity of dental caries, the increase in intensity or the study of the intensity and prevalence of dental caries is the basis for planning dental care. An epidemiological survey of the population determines the strategy for preventive and therapeutic measures. Disease prevalence. This is an index that determines the percentage of people who have carious, filled and extracted teeth in a particular locality, district, city of the region. For example, in a group of surveyed of 100 people, U95, carious filled and extracted teeth were detected. The prevalence of caries in this group will be 95%. Intensity of dental caries. The indicator of the intensity of the lesion is the average number of teeth affected by caries and its complications, planned and removed in one person or group of people examined. The total amount of such teeth is the Kapoo index and has certain digital. The key age group of the adult population is considered by the World Health Organization to be between 35 and 44 years old. The slide shows an assessment of the incidence of caries, where 5 levels are distinguished. Very low, low, medium, high, very high. High KPU index indicates the need for medical work. They make it possible to judge its quality and effectiveness. It indicates insufficient preventive work or its absence. Increase in intensity or incidence. To determine the effectiveness of preventive measures, it is necessary to know the increase in the intensity of caries. Increase in caries, number of new carious lesions in a given period. It is determined by the same person or contingent after a certain period of time, for example, after 5 and 10 years. Is a period of 1 or 2 years considered to be insufficient for this? Differences in the value of the indicator between the second and first examinations and is the increase in the intensity of caries. At present, there is no country in the world where people do not suffer from dental caries and periodontal disease. The data of the epidemiological survey of the Earth obtained by the World Health Organization show that there are significant differences between different countries in the degree of prevalence and intensity of the main dental diseases. As well as the occurrence and the development of these diseases, a huge role is played by age, sex, family and genetic factors of climate, geographical conditions, nutrition, water, quality of oral hygiene, modern treatment and prevention. Having the results of an epidemiological survey of the population, dentists develop a comprehensive system for the prevention of major diseases of the oral cavity individually for each patient or group of people living in geographical and environmental conditions identical to the climate. However, in any case, both therapeutic and preventive measures should be taken only by children with a pathogenetic orientation. Only the identification and elimination of etiological factors' rational impact on the pathogenetic chain of development of pathology allows you to get the maximum therapeutic and preventive effect in diseases of the oral cavity. Theories of the origin of caries. Even in ancient times, attempts were made to explain the occurrence and origin of caries. Currently, there are more than 400 theories, the most famous of which contributed to the accumulation of information, allowing us to make a definite, complete and balanced judgment about the nature of the occurrence of the carious process of caries. Let's consider the most common theory. Miller's chemical parasitic theory, 1884. At one time, this theory was progressive and was widely accepted. In our time, the chemical parasitic theory of caries has been the basis of the modern concept of the pathogenesis of caries. The first stage is the demineralization of hard tissues. Lactic acid formed in the oral cavity as a result of lactic acid fermentation of carbohydrates. Their food residue dissolves in organic matter, enamel and dentine. The second stage is the destruction of the organic matter of dentin by proteolytic enzymes of microorganisms. Miller recognized the existence of predisposing factors. He pointed out the role of the quantity and quality of saliva, nutrition factor, drinking water, emphasized the importance of the hereditary factor and the conditions for the formation of enamel. Modern concept of caries etiology. Based on historical theories, significant advances have now been made in the study of the etiology and pathogenesis of dental caries. The generally recognized mechanisms for the occurrence of caries is the progressive demineralization of hard dental tissues under the action of organic acids, the formation of which is associated with the activity of microorganisms. Many etiological factors are involved in the occurrence of the carious process, which makes it possible to consider caries as a polyetiological disease. The main etiological factors are oral microflora, nature and diet, fluorine content in water, Quantity and quality of salivation. General condition of the body. Extreme effects on the body. The above factors were called cariogenic and divided into general and local, which play an important role in the occurrence of caries. Common factors. Incomplete diet and drinking water. Dental diseases, a shift in the functional state of organs and systems during the formation of maturation of hard tooth tissues. Extreme effects on the body. Heredity, which determines the usefulness of the structure and chemical composition of tooth tissues. Unfavorable genetic code. Local factors.
Зубная бляшка и зубной.
Dental plaque and plaque multiple microorganisms. Violation of the composition and properties of the oral fluid, which is an indicator of the state of the organism in general. Carbohydrate sticky food residue in the mouth. Resistance of dental tissues, due to the full structure and chemical composition in the hard tissues of the tooth. Deviations in the biochemical composition of hard tissues of the tooth and defective structure of the tissues of the tooth. Dental pulp condition. The state of the dentoalveolar system during the period of laying, the development and eruption of permanent teeth. Crowding of teeth. According to modern ideas, the cause of caries is a long-term effect of acids on dental tissues. The formation of organic acids is associated with long-term enzymatic activity of microorganisms. Prolonged exposure to organic acids on tissues is observed with poor oral hygiene, when dental plaque forms on the enamel. It is under it that an acidic environment is created. As a product of the enzymatic activity of a huge number of microorganisms that are able to ideally assimilate carbohydrates that linger in the oral cavity. It should be noted that the action of general factors is carried out, as a rule, through the action of local ones. There is a diet state of organs and systems. Extreme situations can change the composition and properties of the oral fluid, affect the microflora of plaque and dental plaque. Sugar has a specific effect on metabolic processes in the oral cavity, causing a metabolic explosion after taking it. Such an influence of simple carbohydrates is associated with their readiness to enter into metabolism already in the oral cavity, in contrast to proteins, fats and complex carbohydrates, which require preliminary hydrolysis, swelling and activation. The conditions for the absorption of carbohydrates by the microflora of the oral cavity are close to ideal, which, of course, affects the intensity and prevalence of caries. Thus, the conditions for the occurrence of caries are as follows. Certain time. The presence of bacterial plaque, biofilm, colonies of cariogenic microflora fixed on the enamel surface.
Поступление с пищей и задержка.
Intake with food and retention of easily digestible carbohydrates on the surface of tooth enamel. Decrease in individual caries resistance and resistance of tooth tissues and the body as a whole to the effects of caries gene factors. Caries pathogenesis. Caries pathogenesis. As a result of frequent consumption of carbohydrates and insufficient care of the oral cavity, cariogenic microorganisms are tightly fixed on the pellicle, forming plaque. When eating sticky food, its remnants get stuck in the retention points of the teeth and undergo fermentation and decay. Plaque formation is influenced by the anatomical structure of the tooth and its relationship with the surrounding tissues. Tooth surface structure. Diet and intensity of chewing. Saliva and gum fluid. Oral hygiene. The presence of fillings and prostheses in the oral cavity. Dental anomalies. Soft plaque has a porous structure, which ensures the penetration of saliva and liquid food components into it. This is a soft amorphous substance, tightly adjacent to the surface of the tooth. The accumulation in the plaque of the end products of the vital activity of microorganisms and mineral salts slows down this diffusion, since porosity disappears. And this is already a new substance, dental plaque, which can only be forcibly removed, but not completely. Under the dental plaque there is an accumulation of organic acids such as lactic pyruvic acid, formic acid, butyric acid and propionic acids. The latter are products of the fermentation of sugars by most bacteria during their growth. It is these acids that play the main role in the appearance of a demineralized area on the organic areas of enamel. Neutralization of these acids does not occur, since organic diffusion is observed. Dental plaque contains streptococci in particular. Streptococcus matans, Streptococcus sanguis, Streptococcus salivarius, which are characterized by anaerobic fermentation. In this process is a substrate for bacteria, are mainly carbohydrates, and for certain strains of bacteria. Amino acids play a leading role in the occurrence of caries in sucrose, especially intensively occurs. The process of glycolysis during hypersalivation all the way and during sleep. The activity of the fermentation process depends on the amount of carbohydrates involved. It was found that during the period of excess consumption, the amount of sugar in plaque increases significantly. Moreover, at the moment in the plaque, the number of polysaccharides sharply increases, producing streptococci. Mutant streptococci multiply intensively. The formation of plaque is influenced by the composition of food and its consistency. Soft food accelerates its formation as well as the content of a large amount. Sugar plaque is formed more quickly during sleep than during meals. Since salivation and mechanical action slow down the formation of dental plaque. Plaque microorganisms are able to fixate, grow on the hard tissues of the tooth, metal, and plastic and produce heteropolysaccharides containing various carbohydrates, glycans, levanes, dextrins, which play an equally important role. Street with multiple caries, there is an increase in the biochemical activity of streptococci and lactobacilli located on the surface of the tooth. High enzymatic activity of microorganisms is regarded as caries. Susceptibility without microorganisms, caries does not occur. If the balance is disturbed, when demineralization processes predominate, caries of the white spot stage occurs. This process may not stop. but serve as the starting point for the formation of carious cavities of one or another depth. Classification of dental caries. Currently used International Classification of Diseases, 10th revision. The classification is presented on this slide. At present, it is also widespread and recognized among dentists in the classification of carious cavities according to Black based on their specific localization. According to this classification, several classes of carious cavities are distinguished. Classification by Black is presented on the slide. The lecture is over. Thank you for your attention.